Cyber Threat Brief for May 23, 2026. Drupal core SQL injection, CVE 2026-9082, and Trend Micro Apex 1 directory traversal, CVE 2026-34926, are both under active exploitation with federal patch deadlines this week. Lightspeed cPanel plugin CVE 2026-48172 is seeing exploitation for arbitrary script execution as root. First VPN, used by 25 ransomware groups, was taken down in a coordinated global operation. Here's the full breakdown of today's top security stories. Daily Cybersecurity Brief, 2026-0523. Next section, Critical Alerts. Drupal core SQL injection bug actively exploited, added to CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, KEV Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog. CVE 2026-9082. CVE 2026-9082 is an SQL injection vulnerability affecting all supported versions of Drupal core with a CVSS. The common vulnerability scoring system, score of 6, 5. The flaw allows privilege escalation and remote code execution via specially crafted requests sent with the database abstraction API. CIS added it to the KEV catalog based on active exploitation less than 2 days after patches were released. Imperva has observed over 15,000 attack attempts targeting almost 6,000 individual sites across 65 countries, primarily against gaming and financial services. Most activity appears to be reconnaissance and probing to identify PostgreSQL-backed configurations. CVE 2026-9082 is on CISA KEV with EPSS, the exploit prediction scoring system, 0.0, 5th percentile, but active exploitation overrides the low score. Action: patch immediately to one of the following versions: Drupal 11.3.10, 11.2.12, 11.1.10, 10.6.9, 10.5.10, 10.4.10. Drupal 9, 5 and 8. 9 require manual patching. Federal agencies must patch by May 27, 2026. Successful exploitation moves quickly from probing to data extraction or privilege escalation. Sources: The Hacker News CISA. Trend Micro Apex 1 0-day exploited in the wild, CVE 2026-34926. Trend Micro addressed an Apex 1 0-day directory traversal vulnerability exploited in attacks targeting Windows systems. CVE 2026-34926 allows local attackers with admin privileges to inject malicious code by modifying a key table on the server to deploy to agents on affected installations. This vulnerability is only exploitable on the on-premise version of Apex 1, and a potential attacker must have access to the Apex 1 server and already obtained administrative credentials via some other method. Despite restrictive requirements, Trend AI observed at least one exploitation attempt in the wild. CIS added to its KEV catalog and ordered federal agencies to patch by June 4, 2026. CIS currently tracks 12 Trend Micro Apex vulnerabilities that have either been or are still being abused in attacks. Has CVSS not specified, CIS AKEV due June 4, EPSS 0.3, 49th percentile, and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action: apply the patches immediately if you run Apex 1 on premises. Trend Micro also released updates for 7 local privilege escalation vulnerabilities in the Apex 1 standard endpoint protection, SEP, agent on Thursday. This is the 4th Trend Micro Apex 1 0-day exploited in the wild since 2022, including CVE 2025-54948, August 2025, September 2022, and September 2023, and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Sources: Bleeping Computer. Lightspeed cPanel plugin, CVE 2026-48172, exploited to run scripts as root a maximum severity security vulnerability. CVE 2026-48172. CVSS 10.0, in Lightspeed user and cPanel plugin, is under active exploitation. The flaw is an incorrect privilege assignment that allows any cPanel user, including an attacker or compromised account, to exploit the LSWS. Redisable function to execute arbitrary scripts as root. All versions of the plugin between 2.3 and 2.4.4 are affected. Lightspeed's WHM plugin is not impacted. The issue has been addressed in version 2.4.5. Lightspeed confirmed active exploitation but did not share additional details. CVE 2026-48172 has EPSS 0.0, 13th percentile. Action: upgrade to Lightspeed WHM plugin version 5.3.1.0, which is bundled with cPanel plugin v2.4. 7 or higher. If immediate patching is not an option, remove the user-end plugin with /usr/local/lsws/admin/misc/lscmctl cPanel plugin uninstall. Check for compromise with grep re cPanel JSON ipfunc equals redis able/var/cPanel/logs /usr/local/cPanel/logs/2/dev/null. If this command produces output, examine the IP addresses and block any that are not legitimate. This development comes weeks after a critical cPanel vulnerability, CVE 2026-41940, CVSS 9.8, CISAKEV, was exploited to deploy Mirai botnet variants and a ransomware strain called SARI. CVE 2026-41940 has EPSS 0.844, 99th percentile. Sources: The Hacker News. Next section, Business and Infrastructure Threats. FBI warns about fast-growing phishing kit targeting Microsoft 365 users. Kali 365. The FBI issued a public service announcement Thursday warning organizations and defenders about Kali 365, a growing phishing-as-a-service platform that retrieves Microsoft 365 access tokens. The toolkit bypasses multi-factor authentication and abuses OAuth device code authorizations via phishing lures impersonating common enterprise services. This technique grants cybercriminal-controlled applications access to Microsoft 365 accounts, opening victims up to data theft, fraud, extortion, and ransomware attacks. Device code phishing platforms connect a malicious app to a legitimate account with a single code. The process requires fewer steps and less interaction with the user, but victims do have to copy and paste a code generated by the Kali 365 platform to grant access. Proofpoint observed an explosion in device code phishing activity starting in February. By April, Kali 365 was up and running and primarily distributed on Telegram. Kali 365 lowers the barrier of entry, providing less technical attackers access to AI-generated phishing lures, automated campaign templates, real-time targeted individual/entity tracking dashboards, and OAuth token capture capabilities. The platform charges affiliates $250 for 30 days of service or $2,000 for a full year. Kali 365 stores the OAuth access and refresh tokens it captures and makes those available to affiliates on its platform. Those tokens can also be shared and reused by other cybercriminals who didn't participate in the initial phishing lure. These Microsoft 365 tokens provide persistent access, allowing attackers to wade through multiple Microsoft services without a password or additional MFA, multi-factor authentication, requests. Action: monitor for device code phishing attempts that ask users to copy and paste codes to authorize applications. Educate users on the difference between legitimate device code auth flows and phishing attempts. Consider implementing conditional access policies that restrict OAuth device code flows to trusted applications. Review OAuth application consents regularly and revoke suspicious grants. Source: Cyberscoop. First VPN dismantled in global takedown over use by 25 ransomware groups. Authorities in Europe and North America dismantled First VPN service, a criminal virtual private network used by ransomware groups, cybercriminals, and threat actors to obscure the origins of attacks. The operation, codenamed Operation Saffron, was led by France and the Netherlands, with support from 16 other nations. First VPN has been active since about 2014, offering services designed specifically for criminal use with anonymous payments and hidden infrastructure. It was promoted on Russian-speaking cybercrime forums such as Exploit, in- and cross-site scripting, is as a tool to evade law enforcement. The service provided 32 exit node servers in 27 countries. Between May 19 and 20, authorities interviewed the service's administrator, conducted a house search in Ukraine, took down 33 servers, and seized infrastructure. No less than 25 ransomware groups, such as Avidin Ransomware, used First VPN infrastructure to perform network reconnaissance and intrusions. Subscription duration ranged from 1 day to 1 year, costing between $2 for a single day and $483 for a whole year. It accepted payments through Bitcoin, Perfect Money, WebMoney, EgoPay, and Intercash. First VPN offered several connection protocols including OpenConnect, WireGuard, Outline, and VLS TCP Reality. The FBI shared 3 U.S. exit node IPs, 2.223.66.103. Europol said First VPN's users have been notified of the shutdown and warned that their identities are now known to authorities, with information linked to 506 users shared with law enforcement. and 2 additional IP addresses in the show notes. Action: review logs for connections to known first VPN exit nodes. The FBI's flash alert includes a full list of exit node IPs across 27 countries. Block these IPs and monitor for post-compromise activity if any connections are identified. This takedown raises the cost of operation across the cybercriminal ecosystem, but new anonymization services will appear. Sources: the Hacker News Sentinel 1 blog. Orfaith industrial router vulnerability exploited by botnets, CVE 2024-9643. Attackers are aggressively exploiting CVE 2024-9643, an authentication bypass flaw in Forfaith F3x36 industrial cellular routers that stems from hard-coded administrative credentials. CrowdSec has tracked a surge in exploitation since late April 2026. This vulnerability affects industrial environments and critical infrastructure deployments. CVE 2024-9643 has EPSS 0.191, 95th percentile. Action: patch Forfaith F3x36 industrial cellular routers immediately. If patches are not available, isolate affected devices from the internet and restrict access to trusted management networks only. Monitor for unauthorized access attempts. Source: Security Week. Multi-stage Linux intrusion via F5 and Confluence Edge appliance compromise. Microsoft documented a growing trend of internet-facing edge appliances, such as firewalls and VPN gateways, being compromised as initial access points. In this incident, the threat actor compromised an internet-facing F5 BIG-IP load balancer and used trusted relationships to pivot to an internal Linux host. The source was identified as an Azure-hosted appliance running version 15.1.200.1000, a BIG-IP Virtual Edition (V) image version that reached end of life on December 31, 2024. From there, the threat actor compromised a vulnerable SAW application and leveraged its credentials to conduct relay-style authentication attacks against Active Directory. The threat actor authenticated to a Linux server over SSH using a privileged account with sudo rights, maintaining sustained hands-on keyboard access throughout the attack without establishing explicit persistence mechanisms. The threat actor performed extensive reconnaissance using Nmap for network scanning and service discovery, and used GoWitness to perform detailed reconnaissance of HTTP/HTTPS services. Edge appliances often store credentials, certificates, session material, authentication tokens, and identity integrations with directories, cloud services, and identity providers. Once compromised, these trust relationships enable lateral movement that bypasses traditional security controls. Action: retire deprecated and EOL edge appliances immediately. F5 BIG-IP version 15.1.200.1000 reached EOL on December 31, 2024. Treat edge devices, non-Windows systems, and cloud identities as security-critical assets. Prioritize monitoring across these environments and use attack path analysis to identify where threat actors are most likely to establish initial access. Audit privileged accounts with sudo rights on Linux systems. Monitor SSH access from network devices and edge appliances for lateral movement indicators. Source: Microsoft Security Blog. Iranian hackers suspected in U.S. gas station tank monitor breaches. U.S. officials believe Iranian hackers breached automatic tank gauge (ATG) systems that monitor fuel levels in underground storage tanks at gas stations across multiple states. The attackers exploited unprotected, internet-connected devices lacking passwords and were able to alter display readings, though they could not change actual fuel volumes. While no physical damage or safety incidents have occurred, the intrusions have sparked concerns that such access could potentially mask gas leaks or create other risks to critical infrastructure. The cybersecurity industry has long warned about the risks posed by exposed, unprotected ATG systems. Action: audit all internet-connected ATG systems for password protection and access controls. Remove internet access where possible or place behind VPN access with strong authentication. Monitor ATG systems for unauthorized configuration changes. This incident highlights the broader problem of unprotected industrial control systems exposed to the internet. Source: Security Week. CIS, a contractor, exposes credentials on public GitHub repository. A contractor working for CIS left a public GitHub repository named Private CIS openly accessible for months, exposing administrative keys to multiple AWS Gov Cloud accounts along with plaintext passwords for internal CIS systems. While CIS states there is no evidence of unauthorized access to sensitive data so far, the exposed credentials could have allowed attackers to move laterally into government systems or tamper with internal software packages. Action: review your organization's GitHub repositories for accidental credential exposure, especially contractor-created repositories. Implement automated secret scanning on all repositories. Rotate credentials immediately if exposure is suspected. This incident highlights the risk of third-party contractors with access to sensitive systems. Source: Security Week. Hugging Face hiding second-stage malware for NPM supply chain. Attack hackers linked to North Korea have embedded second-stage malware inside Hugging Face, the widely used AI and machine learning hub, effectively turning it into a malware delivery channel. This represents a new and alarming way to weaponize one of the most trusted platforms in the AI world. Action: review dependencies from Hugging Face repositories for unexpected executables or obfuscated code. Monitor for unexpected network connections during model loading. Implement code signing and verification for ML models and dependencies. This attack vector highlights the supply chain risk in the AI/ML ecosystem. Source: Data breaches. Net. Next section, General Security News. New Mac OS Stealer variant masquerades as Apple, Google, and Microsoft. Reaper, Sentinel-1 researchers identified a new Mac OS Infostealer variant using the build tag Reaper, the latest evolution within the S-Hub Stealer malware family. The infection chain uses fake WeChat and Miro installers hosted on type-squatted domains to lure victims. The websites employ extensive anti-analysis techniques, blocking developer tools and fingerprinting visitors to avoid virtual environments. To sidestep Apple's recent Mac OS Tahoe mitigations, the malware abandons traditional click-fix social engineering in terminal, instead leveraging the Apple script //URL scheme to launch the Mac OS script editor. Malicious HTML from the webpage creates a script deliberately padded with ASCII art to hide the malicious command. On execution, the script displays a message indicating it is downloading an Apple security update. Once executed, the Apple script prompts the user for their password to access protected keychain items and decrypt credentials. Reaper extensively harvests browser data, password manager extensions, and iCloud account details. The variant introduces an AMOS-style file grabber module that targets business and financial documents, dividing the stolen data into 70 megabytes chunked ZIP archives for exfiltration. The Reaper malware also actively hijacks desktop cryptocurrency applications by terminating the active processes and replacing the legitimate core app. A SAR file. To bypass Mac OS Gatekeeper, the script clears quarantine attributes and applies ad hoc code signing to the modified application bundle. Action: block Apple script //URL scheme at the web proxy level if possible. Educate Mac OS users about fake software update prompts that request passwords. Monitor for Apple script execution from web browsers. This variant demonstrates S-Hub operators extending beyond credential and wallet theft to establish persistence. Source: Sentinel-1 blog. Interpol Operation RAMS rounds up 200-plus cybercrime suspects across Middle East and North Africa. Over 200 individuals and another 382 suspects have been rounded up in Interpol's Operation RAMS, an initiative targeting cybercrime networks across the Middle East and North Africa. Spanning 13 countries and working alongside cybersecurity partners, police seized 53 servers used for malware distribution, phishing campaigns, and online fraud responsible for attacks with at least 3,867 confirmed victims. Highlights of the operation include dismantling an investment scam in Jordan and a phishing-as-a-service (PHS) platform in Algeria, and confiscating devices, servers, and data linked to various operations in Qatar, Oman, and Morocco. Ukrainian cyber police, alongside U.S. law enforcement, identified a suspect in Odessa, allegedly responsible for operating an Infostealer malware campaign. Between 2024 and 2025, the accused targeted users of a California-based online store, compromising 28,000 customer accounts. He then exploited 5,800 of these stolen session tokens to make $721,000 in unauthorized purchases. Source: Sentinel-1 blog. Verizon DBER. Healthcare fends off increased social engineering attacks. Verizon Business 2026 data breach investigations report. DBER highlights how the healthcare sector faces mounting social engineering attacks, many emboldened by artificial intelligence. The industry faces challenges stemming from ransomware, third-party vendor breaches, and social engineering. Social engineering returned as one of the top 3 patterns attackers used in breaches, alongside system intrusion and miscellaneous errors. The 3 represented 81% of breaches. Attackers' social engineering tactics have evolved significantly. For the past 12 to 18 months, more healthcare organizations have grappled with advanced attacks that leverage AI-fueled social engineering to create a sense of urgency and catch people off guard. Attackers have taken traditional phishing up a notch by using generative AI to create highly targeted, context-aware communications and malicious documents at scale. The rise of pretexting, faking identities or scenarios to manipulate a target into performing actions they would otherwise not undertake, jumped to the know. 2 spot among social actions in the report for healthcare breaches, right behind phishing. Pretexting was not mentioned under healthcare in Verizon's 2025 DBER. With help from AI, threat actors have responded to improved email security by refining pretexts and tailoring lures to healthcare workflows, including vendor billing, human resources, IT access, and even clinical operations. The apparent increase may also be due to better reporting quality, as social engineering attacks that previously lacked sufficient detail to classify are now being accurately reported. Action: focus security awareness training on pretexting scenarios specific to healthcare workflows, vendor billing, HR, IT access, clinical operations. Implement verification procedures for high-risk requests, especially those creating a sense of urgency. Monitor for AI-generated communications with context-aware details that may bypass traditional phishing filters. Source: Dark Reading. Next section, Patch Priority. Drupal core. Patch to 11.3.10/11.2.12/11.1.10/10.6.9/10.5.10/10.4.10, CVE 2026-9082, CVSS 6.5, CIS-AKEV due May 27. Active exploitation for SQL injection leading to privilege escalation and remote code execution. Trend Micro Apex 1, on-prem. Apply patches immediately, CVE 2026-34926, CIS-AKEV due June 4. Zero-day directory traversal exploited for malicious code injection. Lightspeed cPanel plugin. Upgrade to WHM plugin 5.3.1.0 with cPanel plugin v2.4. 7 Plus, CVE 2026-48172, CVSS 10.0. Active exploitation for arbitrary script execution as root. F5 Big IP. Retire version 15.1.200 EOL December 31, 2024. Used as initial access in documented attacks with lateral movement to Linux and Active Directory. Forfaith F3x36 industrial routers. Patch or isolate, CVE 2024-9643, EPSS 0.191. Aggressive botnet exploitation of hard-coded credentials since late April 2026. Next section, Vulnerability Disclosures. CVE 2026-41091, CIS-AKEV, EPSS 0.66, 91st percentile, added to CIS-AKEV with due date June 3, 2026. Specific details not provided in sources, but EPSS score suggests moderate exploitation likelihood. CVE 2026-45401, EPSS 0.0, 12th percentile, vulnerability disclosed but specific details not available in sources. CVE 2025-14575, Qt Network Open SSL TLS Backend, EPSS 0.0, first percentile, uncontrolled search path element allows rogue CA certificate loading. Low exploitation probability based on EPSS. CVE 2026-3593, by 9 DNS over HTTPS, EPSS 0.0, 5th percentile, heap use after free vulnerability. Patch available from ISC. CVE 2026-42009, GNU TLS DTLS, EPSS 0.1, 31st percentile, denial of service via DTLS packet reordering vulnerability. CVE 2026-3039, by 9, EPSS 0.1, 16th percentile, server memory exhaustion during GSS API T-key negotiation. CVE 2026-3592, by 9, EPSS 0.0, 4th percentile, amplification vulnerabilities via self-pointed glue records. CVE 2026-5946, by 9, EPSS 0.0, 11th percentile, invalid handling of class, equals in. CVE 2026-5950, by 9, EPSS 0.1, 21st percentile, unbounded resend loop in bind 9 resolver. CVE 2026-41054, Haved, EPSS 0.0, 0th percentile, missing exit out of permission check could lead to root exploit. CVE 2026-8723, QS. Stringify, EPSS 0.0, 14th percentile, crashes on null/undefined entries in comma format arrays under encode values only. CVE 2026-5947, bind 9, EPSS 0.0, 6th percentile, SIG0, validation during query flood may lead to undefined behavior. CVE 2026-8711, Nginx JavaScript, EPSS 0.2, 47th percentile, vulnerability in Nginx JavaScript module. CVE 2025-51480, UNX 1.17.0, EPSS 0.4, 59th percentile, path traversal vulnerability in UNX. External data helper. Save external data allows attackers to overwrite arbitrary files by supplying crafted external data. Location paths containing traversal sequences. CVE 2023-6606, Linux kernel SMB, small and medium business, EPSS 0.0, first percentile, out-of-bounds read vulnerability in SMB calc size. CVE 2025-39932, Linux SMB client, EPSS 0.0, second percentile, lets SMBD destroy. Call disable work sync for post-send credits work. Multiple Linux kernel CVEs, CVE 2025-40064, various use after free, race condition, and information disclosure vulnerabilities in Linux kernel subsystems. All have EPSS 0.0, low percentiles, indicating minimal observed exploitation attempts, and 8 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Next section, Trends and Context. This week's intelligence highlights a continued focus on exploiting trusted infrastructure and edge devices as initial access vectors. The compromise of EOL F5 BIG-IP appliances demonstrates how operational constraints delaying patching create durable footholds for threat actors. The coordinated takedown of First VPN, used by 25 ransomware groups, temporarily disrupts criminal infrastructure, but raises costs rather than eliminating the capability. Social engineering continues to evolve with AI assistance, particularly in healthcare and enterprise environments, where OAuth device code phishing platforms like Kali 365 provide turnkey solutions for bypassing MFA. The weaponization of trusted platforms like Hugging Face for supply chain attacks signals a new frontier in targeting AI/ML development workflows. That concludes today's cyber threat brief. From Carolina Clear Tech. Stay patched, stay vigilant.